What's up and welcome to my guitar channel. Last video I did was on what I thought was the most powerful and creative tool inside the new Neural DSP plugin, Archetype Henson. Just in case you haven't seen that video, I'm talking about the multi-voicer within the plugin. There is a pretty major aspect that I left out of that video, which is the MIDI capabilities that this plugin has. And that's for good reason. I wanted to show you what you could do with just a little bit of playing around with the multi-voicer, even if you kind of didn't really know what you were doing. This video, we're going to go into a lot more depth on the MIDI function that it has within it, because when you can start playing with this, it really unlocks a crazy amount of potential. And this week, the challenge that I've set myself is, instead of using the tool to enhance what I'm writing, I'm going to take one note, and that is my entire source material, and build a full song out of that. Please ignore the mess you can see behind me, because I have just moved into this house and, well, I'm still unpacking and organizing and all that stuff. I'm also going to share my session below, so you can download it. All you need is the Henson plugin and Ableton Live. There is another session in here, which is the mixed version, which you'll hear at the end of the video. This plugin is one of the most CPU intensive plugins I have. I was literally crushing my computer to try and get this to work, and when I was trying to record it, I just had epic failure after epic failure. I had to freeze the tracks in place, which is why some of the things are going to look a bit funny and stuff like that, but it's literally my computer could not handle it, and I have a decent computer. If you download the session and try, you're going to find some serious issues, or I've just got my setup completely wrong and have had it that way for many years, but I think it's the plugin. On that note, if there are any audio syncing issues, I apologize. It's something that is really hard to control when you've got your computer not being able to record in real time. It means two different things start happening at once, and it's very difficult to catch that and line that up right. So the starting note we've got here is this. Not even a brilliant note. This is the 9th fret on the G string. So to allow multi-voicer to take control of your DAW, each DAW is different, but in Ableton, all you need to do is you get the source track, which, if you imagine this top one is the source, then you create another separate MIDI track. This MIDI track has nothing on it except for the MIDI notes. You put the output, which is this little box here, of the whatever MIDI track into your audio track. All you need to do is select which plugin you want it to affect. Now, I don't have 16 instances of Archetype Henson on this track. I'm not exactly sure what all these different things are, but what I do is, it's the first thing that I set up. I make sure that it's working, and when it's working, I just select these two and duplicate them. Now, what this duplication has done has created two new tracks, but these two are linked together in the exact same way. So it's a carbon copy, and there's no cross confusion. It's just created this a second time. If you're working on a different DAW, check Neural DSP's instruction manual. They will have what you need to do on there, and if not, your DAW, there'll be plenty of people that will be able to show you how to do it online. Now, the very first thing I tried to do with this MIDI is see if I could confuse it or do weird things that aren't necessarily intended. First thing I tried was slides, and it actually handled it really well. This is what it sounds like. Now, just so that you hear what the multi-voicer is actually doing, I'm going to turn off everything else. Turn it back on, give it a bit of flavor, a bit of life. So when I first started writing this, I did have a kind of vision. I wanted to make some type of rock metal song with the track. When you're working with MIDI, all you're doing is you're taking one sample, one little clip, and trying to fit that to whatever you want it to do. So it may be something that's totally illogical, or it may sound exactly like the real thing, because it is the real thing, just changed in some way. I wanted to start working on power chords. Very quickly, I realized that that was impossible. It was going to just sound like Guitar Pro. Now, nobody wants to listen to a track that sounds like someone's playing Guitar Pro, but that's the result I was getting. Because I was working with MIDI, I chose to only use one sample. When I realized this, I immediately decided that no, I'm going to step away from writing a rock song. I'm going to break the pattern of any idea of how this song should be and just allow the sounds that I'm generating to dictate where I go. But before I move on, this is what it sounded like. Not winning any Grammys with that, my friends. So I moved on. There were two things about it that I'd liked so far with my first attempt, and that was the slidey guitar and the chopped guitar. Now the chopped guitar does sound very, very MIDI, but if you turn that down and bring it back in the mix, then it starts to become a rhythm track rather than something that sounds like a guitar or anything. Now at this point I wanted to see if I could do something with bells, because I love bells in music. In my electronic music I put them everywhere, and it's a very simple process to make with a synth. Essentially all a bell is a very sharp spike in the frequencies, and when it hits that resonant frequency it hangs on that for a long time. So very quick loud attack and then a resonant long tail. I tried to see what I could take out of this, and this is the result that I got. Now in listening to that, you can hear a lot of booms in the bass and clicks and softness and all these different articulations that are coming out of the bells. And at this point I've left it in for two reasons. The first reason is because when a computer gets a sample and tries to manipulate it for MIDI, it's taking a tiny bit of information. If that happens to be when you've muted the strings, then the result is no information. However, if that happens to be when you've got this huge spike in your volume, then it's going to happen with a huge spike in volume. If you want the sustain bit in the middle, you use the sustain part. So it all comes down to the source material. What part of the source material are you choosing for the computer to look to and reference to give you the result? A reason for the randomness is because it allows some level of human to get back into the process. So you heard with that last bells clip, it's got all this weirdness going on. It's like a kind of kid was playing roughly in time. And maybe I want that. Maybe I don't want this exact repeated sound, because then that moves into the realm of the MIDI guitars that I want to avoid. I want to have something that's organic about this. It's just another way to humanize. And the second reason for doing this is I'm going to address it in the mixing part. My computer was struggling enough with just having the plugins loaded and playing back. I really didn't want to do more than necessary at this point, because the more editing and the more that I was making the program do at once, the harder it would be to get any result and be able to make this video, things like that. It's much easier to just let that be and deal with that a little later on when it's just a WAV file and nothing complicated about it, simple to work with. Now, keep in mind that at this point, every single thing that you've heard in the track, I just need to reiterate this, it comes from that one single note we heard earlier. Now, you may have noticed that I'm using two instances of Archetype. Effectively what I'm doing is taking the source material, which is that single note that we heard earlier, and I'm processing that through the multi-voicer first. So if we turn off the second Archetype, you'll understand what I'm talking about. I'm going to turn it up a bit. Right, so if we turn off this Archetype, it's kind of nearly an organy, fluty type of thing. We turn on the second instance of Archetype. If we turn off the first instance of Archetype, right? Each of these is necessary. Now, the reason why I'm doing this is because if I get this processing done first, then the input material is different. That means that every stage that it's going through in here is totally different. And with this track, I chose to put on a second multi-voicer as well. So if we listen to that without the second multi-voicer, right, so you see these are just all different tools for your creativity. Next step was creating some change. I had a bit of a groove. It's kind of crap, like I don't like this song. I don't think it's really listenable, but I just wanted to do something that gave it interest, that gave it a moment in the track. Now when I write my electronic stuff, a really easy way to do that is to do arpeggios. It's done everywhere through the type of electronic music that I listen to, and it's done everywhere through music, so why not do it in this track where I'm trying to show how versatile this plugin can be. And it's a really easy tool to create a build or create interest, and that's all I wanted it to be, is just a moment. You throw some drums on there and then you got yourself a vibe. Naturally, after that, I did a false drop because this isn't going to be a big electronic song. It's just going to be some experiment that I'm trying to do for YouTube. It's nothing important. So I did a false drop, and we go into a guitar riff type of thing. Now, I did take care in this version of the riff to make it not sound MIDI. There's two things at play here. One is I was more intentional about how I created it. The second is it doesn't sound exactly like a guitar. At this point in the song, you've heard a bass, you've heard a chopped guitar, you've heard bells, you've heard slidey bits. None of this is really telling your brain that this is a guitar song. So to hear something that sounds kind of like an electronic instrument, you know, even if it's a bit crap, a bit cheap, you still, okay, it's an electronic instrument. It's not, oh, that's someone playing guitar on Guitar Pro. In this way, it doesn't sound good, but at least it doesn't sound like it was a mistake. All you do then is you add on a climax and you're done. Now I'm going to take a couple of seconds to show you the source material with and without the Tim Henson plugin turned off, drums on, blah, 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 blah. You'll see on the title of the video. This is just to exclusively outline how powerful this tool can be, how easy it is with this tool to take it from being a useless bit of non-music into something that is like, wow, there's a bunch going on here. It's interesting, it's cool, it sounds good, blah, 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 blah. This plugin is doing a lot of heavy lifting here. I have created 2 songs of varying goodness from this one plugin. As mentioned in the last video, if you're looking for tools to expand your creativity, this is a brilliant tool. To run this video out, I'm going to play you what I wrote using only one note. The only thing that you hear in this track that doesn't involve the Tim Henson plugin or that one single note is the drums. While you're listening to my latest masterpiece, please give me a like. Please subscribe if you haven't already, and ask any questions that you've got below. I will do everything that I can to answer them as swiftly as possible. If you're looking for lessons, email me below. Other than that, I'll see you next week. Enjoy. Thank you.